Good evening, everybody. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people. Today is July 22nd, 2023. And I have an amazing piece of information that was sent to me through a comment on my YouTube channel. And it has to do with the 9 years from the two cows that were born with the number 7 on them in 2014. And we're going to look at the story in the Bible and how it is connected to the 9th year when Israel came to Egypt in the 2nd year of the famine. After the 7 years of plenty, there were 2 years of famine when Israel came to Egypt. So there's a 9-year difference between the beginning of the prosperity and the beginning of the famine, or when Israel came into Egypt in the 2nd year of the famine. So let's take a look at this information, meaning that from 2014, with these two cows that were born between the Feast of Trumpets and the timing of the fall feasts, both of these cows with the number 7 were born connected to the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, I think this one was born on Elul 25, and this one was born on the Feast of Trumpets, September 25th, Tishri 1. So let's take a look at this information. This was sent to me by Raul Dominguez, and he's got this on Five Dove's website. And he sent this information to me in a comment under one of my videos. The two cows with the number 7 and the 2-year delay, the red cow famine to start beginning on the Feast of Trumpets in 2023. The two cows with the number 7 on the forehead, one is a red cow representing the 7 years of famine. The black cow represents the 7 years of plenty. Looks like there are 2 years delay according to the book of Jasher before the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine starts. The red cow was born on Thursday, September 25th, 2014, and Tishri 1, that was Tishri 1 of 5775. The black cow was born Elul 25 of 2014. And from their birth in 2014, plus a 2-year delay, comes to Elul 25, 2016, then adding 7 years of plenty ends on Elul 25 of 2023. And the red cow representing 7 years of famine starts on Tishri 1, 2023. And the revolution of the year could be Tishri 1. Now this is from the book of Jasher. Now I'm going to be sharing with you information from the book of Genesis also. And I'm going to show you a 9-year delay or a 9-year difference in another way. But according to the book of Jasher, at the revolution of the year, in the 2nd year of Joseph's reigning over Egypt, the Lord gave great plenty throughout the land for 7 years, as Joseph had spoken. For the Lord blessed all the produce of the earth in those days for 7 years, and they ate and were greatly satisfied. Okay, according to the book of Jasher, after 2 years of him being in Egypt, then the time of prosperity began, and then 7 years later, the famine began. So there was a 9-year difference. So we have from 2014 bringing us to 2023. Now let's go to the book of Genesis, and I will show you what is seen about the timeline of Joseph and the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. Okay, according to Genesis 41, 46 through 49, Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid up he in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. Okay, so Joseph was 30 years old when he was put into power in Egypt. And then it goes right into the beginning of the 7 years of plenty. So now if we go to Genesis 45, 4 through 7, and we're going to see the timing of the famine and when Israel came to Egypt after the famine had begun. Genesis 45, 4 through 7. Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land. And yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So here we have, after 2 years, Joseph's family came to Egypt. After 2 years of famine had already begun. So from the beginning of the years of plenty, there were 9 years that went by. 7 years of plenty, plus 2 years of famine, and then they came to Egypt. Now we can also see it from another source, showing us that when Joseph was 30 years old, he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, becomes second in command. The years of plenty begins, and he was 37 years old at the end of the years of plenty. Then, when he was 39 years old, 2 years into the famine, the family comes to get grain. So from 2014, from the 25th day of Elul and from the Feast of Trumpets in 2014, we have 2 cows that were born with the number 7. Now, if we have a 2-year delay and then the beginning of the time of prosperity, according to the book of Jasher, or if we have the beginning of the 7 years of plenty and then the 2-year delay when Israel came into Egypt 2 years after the famine had already begun, either way, from both stories, we have a 9-year difference from the beginning of the famine. There's 9 years. There's a 9-year difference. So from 2014, in the beginning of the years of plenty, 2023 would mark the timing of Israel coming into Egypt, 9 years after. So I have been pointing to the Day of Atonement since the beginning of June. And I have been putting together all of this information about the bright morning star that is going to be becoming a morning star, Venus, in the timing of the Feast of Trumpets through the Day of Atonement. All of this information about the timeline from the beginning of the pandemic. All of the movies that show September 23rd, September 24th, and the Day of Atonement being the great trumpet of the year of Jubilee. All of this is fully documented in my playlist that I have, and I will leave all of these links for you here at the end. And so this is one more detail that I am sharing with you from the birth of the 2 cows in 2014, 7 years of plenty, and then the 2-year delay when Israel came to Egypt, marking the Feast of Trumpets or the Day of Atonement in 2023 as the timing connected to these 2 cows. So I wanted to share this with you. I pray you are blessed. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people, the sign of his coming revealed.